There's something strange about watching the person who shattered you unravel in public. She didn't even notice me at first. Not when I stepped onto the ballroom floor. Not when I shook hands with the regional VP. Not even when I walked past her table, close enough to see the stitching on her overpriced clutch. But I noticed her. God, how could I not? Her laugh was the same. Sharp, calculated, just loud enough to make sure people heard it. Her hair was longer, darker. She wore red, of course. She always wore red when she wanted attention. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't just attending that event. I was one of the speakers. And when I stepped up to that mic, everything changed. Let me be clear, this wasn't revenge. Not in the dramatic, movie scene way. I didn't plan to run into her or show her what she lost. I didn't even know she worked for the parent company now. I had accepted the invitation because my firm had quietly landed a massive logistics contract no one thought we'd win. They were honoring 3 companies that night. Mine was last. And as I stood behind the curtain, waiting for my name to be called, I heard hers. Samantha, my ex-wife, reading names on the welcome committee, looking proud of herself, soaking up the spotlight like she always did. And I just stood there, behind the velvet curtain, sweating through my undershirt, heart pounding like it was trying to outrun my past. I hadn't seen her in 3 years. Not since she walked out on our marriage like it was some boring subscription she forgot to cancel. Not since I found the private messages on her old iPad, the ones she forgot to log out of. Not since the night she told me I lacked ambition and left to figure herself out with a man she swore was just a colleague. I never answered her last text. I never showed up to the mediation. I vanished. But I didn't waste those years. I rebuilt in silence. I kept my head down. I made something of myself. Not to impress her. Not to make her jealous. Just to survive. And now here we were. Same room. Same company. Same night. But not the same people. She was still charming, still magnetic. Still pretending her life was everything she wanted it to be. Until she heard my name. Until she looked up at the stage. Until our eyes met. That's when the mask cracked. That's when the glass in her hand slipped. That's when the room turned quiet. That's when everything truly began. Her hand jerked. The champagne flute tipped, crashed to the floor, and shattered. Conversations around her halted. Heads turned. A few people gasped. But me? I didn't flinch. I stood behind the podium and waited, heart hammering, as she stood frozen beside the table, her face pale, mouth slightly open, eyes locked on mine like I was a ghost. For a moment, I thought she might faint. Her hand hovered over her chest like she was trying to hold something in, a scream maybe, or regret. I just gave the smallest nod. Not a smirk, not a grin, just a quiet, controlled nod. And then I started speaking. Good evening. I'm honored to be here tonight on behalf of Stratwood Logistics, a team that believed in me when I barely remembered how to believe in myself. I could barely hear myself over the noise in my head. Every word I said, I saw her reaction. Every sentence, her jaw tensed a little more. I saw her fingers curl into her dress. Her eyes blinked too fast. She wasn't just surprised, she was unraveling. Because I wasn't just alive and well. I was standing on stage, successful, confident, calm. Everything she thought I couldn't be. Back when we were together, she used to cut me down in subtle ways. You wouldn't understand. It's not your kind of world. You're too passive, Colin. I used to believe her. I thought maybe I was too soft for the world she thrived in. Loud boardrooms, networking dinners, flirting under the guise of strategy. I found out about the affair through accident. A shared iCloud photo backup, one she forgot to disconnect. A hotel mirror selfie. 2 wine glasses. A man's shirt in the background. A face I recognized from her team's holiday party. She swore they were just talking about a joint project. But I knew. I always knew. I just didn't want to admit it. The night she left, she didn't even cry. She looked around our apartment like it was a place she rented by mistake. She said I was safe, but not exciting. She said she couldn't spend her life wondering if there was more. She found more. A man named Garrett, some creative director with the personality of a peeled grape and the ego of a tech CEO. I heard through mutual friends they got engaged 6 months after the divorce was finalized. And now, here she was, watching me speak in front of 300 executives and partners. Watching me be applauded for a company I built from the ground up. Watching me become everything she swore I couldn't. When I stepped off the stage, the applause was still echoing. I didn't look for her, But she found me. I was halfway to the reception bar when I heard my name. Not spoken, but gasped. Colin. I turned. There she was, just a few feet away. Her hands trembling. Lip quivering. That fake confidence she always wore like a designer coat. Gone. What was left was raw and unfiltered panic. And I hated how my chest still tightened when I saw her like that. Like some broken puppy part of me still wanted to comfort her. But I didn't move. I let her walk toward me, heels clicking like thunder on the marble floor. I didn't know, she stammered. I didn't know you'd be here. I tilted my head slightly. Would it have changed anything if you did? She opened her mouth, closed it, looked down, and then, out of nowhere, she whispered, "You look happy." I paused. I wanted to say something witty, something cold, but all I said was, "I am." And then I turned and walked away. I didn't see her break down, but I heard about it 15 minutes later. She collapsed in the hallway. Someone had to help her outside. And apparently, she cried so loudly that the staff escorted her to the valet line before she caused a bigger scene. I didn't go after her. Not this time. Not ever again. I didn't see her cry. I didn't need to. The people who came up to me afterward, some I barely knew, they told me everything. "Hey, man, was that your ex out there?" She looked not good. One guy from procurement leaned in with wide eyes and whispered. She broke down. Like, full meltdown. "You okay?" I didn't know how to answer that. Was I okay? I think I was. I didn't feel triumphant. Not really. I didn't feel angry either. The only thing I felt was this strange emptiness, like I had finally reached the end of a road I'd been dragging myself down for years, only to realize it wasn't a cliff, it was just quiet. But I'd be lying if I said part of me didn't feel vindicated. 3 years ago, I would have crumbled at the sight of her tears. I would have rushed to her side, babbling apologies I didn't know. I would have begged for another chance, even if I hadn't done anything wrong. I was that guy, the doormat, the fixer, the over-explainer. But that night, I just let it be. I let her cry in the parking lot. I let the past sink into the marble floor and disappear behind my polished shoes. And I went to the bar and ordered a ginger ale because I don't drink anymore. She always said I was boring for that too, like drinking less made me less of a man. While I was sipping, a woman I'd met once before at a workshop came up to me. Her name was Hannah. She smiled and said, "You handled that like a king." I smiled politely. "Handled what?" She grinned. "Exactly. We talked for maybe 10 minutes. Harmless stuff. Industry talk, upcoming projects, books we both liked." But in the back of my mind, all I could think about was what Samantha must have felt, watching me be calm, social, comfortable in a room full of people she always said were out of my league. She used to tell me I didn't know how to work a room. She said I'd never survive at the top. But I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. When I left the venue later that night, I half expected her to be waiting near my car, arms crossed, looking for some dramatic final scene. But she wasn't. The valet handed me my keys. My phone buzzed, a notification from my GPS app. No missed calls. No messages. I slid into the driver's seat and just sat there for a second. I stared at the steering wheel and exhaled slowly. I should have felt powerful, victorious. But instead, I just felt peace. A kind of stillness I hadn't felt since before the first lie she ever told me. And then my phone lit up. A number I didn't recognize. No name. Just a short message. "Can we talk? Please. Just once." I locked my screen. I didn't reply. I just drove away. But deep inside, I knew this wasn't the end. Women like Samantha don't cry in public and walk away quietly. She was unraveling, and something told me I was only seeing the beginning of it. I didn't answer that first text. I wasn't going to open that door, not even an inch. I knew what would happen if I did. It would all come flooding back. The guilt, the confusion, the twisted way she could say just enough to make me question my own reality. I'd fall into that old role again. The emotional janitor cleaning up after her chaos while she stood there pretending to be the victim. No, not this time. The next morning, I woke up to 3 more texts. Still no name attached, just that same number. The first was short. "I need to talk to you. Please." The second one, longer. "I wasn't ready to see you last night." I didn't expect to feel all of that again. "You don't have to reply. I just needed to say it." The third one. It nearly made me laugh, and not in a good way. "Garrett and I are separated." There it was. The opening line of the same old script. She'd burned one bridge and now turned around to see if the one she torched 3 years ago was still standing. I didn't reply. Again. But my curiosity got the best of me. I searched her name. Just a quick search, nothing deep. I found a corporate profile for her with a photo that was clearly from last year. No ring. I found her Instagram too. It was public, probably on purpose. She never posted much, but there was something new, a selfie from the gala. A filtered, polished image with the caption, "Growth comes from pain. Rebuilding isn't linear." Still standing. Still standing? That was rich. She had never known what it meant to fall. She had always had someone to catch her. Parents, friends, Garrett. And now, what? She wanted me to be the net again. 3 days passed. I tried to focus on work, but the texts kept coming, about one a day. She never got emotional, never blamed me, never begged. They were just there, sitting on my screen like ghosts tapping on a window. I didn't reply. I just read them and deleted them. Until she sent the picture. It was late. Around 1:30 a.m. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed, and there it was, an image message. My heart jumped. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was a photo of a note. The note I wrote her. The one I slipped into her suitcase the night she said she was going to Phoenix. The night I later found out she was skiing with Garrett. It said, "Come home to me." See, she had folded it, creased it, and tucked it away somewhere all these years. And now she was sending it back to me like it meant something. Beneath the image, she wrote, "I never threw this away. I just didn't deserve it." And for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel hopeful. I felt furious. Because that note, that stupid little note, meant everything to me back then. It was a piece of my heart, my last fragile attempt to hold on. And she ignored it, chose someone else, watched me fall apart, and didn't look back. But now that she was alone, now that her picture-perfect life cracked, suddenly the note mattered? I didn't reply, but I didn't sleep either. Because something about that photo, it felt like bait, like a setup. And deep down, I had a sinking feeling this wasn't just about regret. Something else was coming. A week passed. I didn't reply. I kept telling myself, don't go backward. Don't fall for nostalgia. Don't confuse her guilt for your closure. I threw myself into work, hit the gym like a maniac, even signed up for a weekend hiking trip with some guys from my firm just to keep my mind off everything. But no matter what I did, the silence from her side started to feel off. Almost too quiet, like a pause before a storm. And then it came. Not from her, but from someone else. I was at a regional leadership roundtable, boring stuff, catered lunch, uncomfortable chairs, when a woman named Clarissa sat next to me. She worked for a company that had recently merged with Samantha's old firm. I barely knew her, but we had shaken hands at a few events. She leaned in during one of the breaks and said, "So, small world, huh?" I blinked. "Sorry. I mean," she laughed softly, "you and Samantha being in the same room again after all that." I was shocked she showed her face, honestly, especially after what happened. That made my stomach tighten. "What do you mean, what happened?" Clarissa hesitated, like she'd already said too much. Then she leaned in a little closer. "You don't know? About Garrett?" I didn't move. I just gave a slow shake of my head. I hadn't spoken to anyone about her since the divorce, and I sure as hell hadn't kept tabs on Garrett. Last I knew, they were happily engaged and living in that high-rise loft she used to dream about. Clarissa sighed. "He got arrested. Corporate fraud. It's been quiet, non-disclosure stuff. You know how these firms are, but people talk. Samantha's been dragged into it. That's why she's been popping up at events again. She's trying to rebuild her image. Word is she might lose her position entirely." My blood ran cold. So that was it. The meltdown. The messages. The picture of the note. The sudden interest in talking again. It wasn't about closure. It wasn't even about regret. It was about survival. She was falling, and she thought maybe I could catch her. Again, I left the round table early. Didn't even make an excuse. I just walked out and sat in my car for 10 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, replaying every text she'd sent over the past week. Not one of them had mentioned Garrett. Not one had hinted at trouble. Just carefully worded emotional breadcrumbs, leading me to believe she was just mourning what we lost. I scrolled through my deleted messages. Read the last one again. "I never threw this away. I just didn't deserve it." She was right about that part. She didn't deserve it. That night, I finally texted back. Just one line. "I know about Garrett." No emojis. No punctuation. Just cold, flat truth. She read it within 2 minutes. But she didn't reply. Not right away. Not for hours. And when she finally did, it was the last thing I expected. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't an excuse. It wasn't even emotional. It was an address. And 2 words. Come over. I stared at it for a long time, heart pounding, 1,000 thoughts crashing into each other inside my head. Why now? Why me? Why the hell would I even consider it? But I already knew. I was going. Not for her. For answers. Because whatever game she was playing, I needed to see it for myself, face to face. I don't know what I was expecting when I pulled into the driveway. Maybe drama, maybe a total breakdown, maybe even a half-hearted apology rehearsed in front of a mirror. What I didn't expect was the stillness. Her building was sleek, modern, cold, a short-term rental, clearly not the luxury loft she'd bragged about on social media years ago. No concierge, no rooftop view, just a rustling bush near the door and a porch light that flickered like it couldn't decide whether to die or shine. She opened the door before I even knocked, like she'd been standing there, watching through the peephole, hoping I wouldn't turn around. Colin, she said. Just my name. Not soft. Not sharp. Just empty. I stepped inside without speaking. The apartment smelled like cinnamon, artificial and desperate. A candle was burning on the kitchen counter next to a bottle of unopened wine. She looked different in this light. Tired. Smaller, somehow. She wore an oversized sweater like armor, and her nails, always perfectly manicured when we were together, were chipped and uneven. I stayed near the door. She stood by the kitchen island, fingers twitching around the stem of a wine glass she hadn't poured. I didn't know how else to. Save it, I said. You want to talk? Talk. But drop the performance. She blinked, and for the first time in years, she looked like someone who didn't know what to say. The Samantha I remembered always had a line ready. A pivot. A deflection. But now, she just looked lost. You know about Garrett, she finally said. I nodded. Everyone does. Quietly. Her laugh was bitter. Yeah, well, quiet doesn't mean painless. They froze my accounts. I'm under review at the firm. I had to move out of the condo last month. I'm living off savings. Which, surprise, weren't actually savings. He was borrowing against everything. I crossed my arms. So now you want me to feel sorry for you? No. Her voice cracked. I don't want you to feel anything for me. She stopped, swallowed hard. I wanted you to know I wasn't lying when I said I kept that note. I kept it, even when I didn't deserve to. I stared at her. You didn't deserve a lot of things you got. That hit her. I saw it in the way she looked down and pulled at the cuff of her sleeve. She started to say something else, but stopped. I walked past her, slowly, eyes scanning the room. Her walls were bare. No framed photos. No decorations. No sign of a life being built. Just survival. And guilt. And dust. I thought you'd be colder, she said behind me. I turned. You don't know who I am anymore. She nodded. I'm starting to realize that. I leaned against the counter. So what is this, Sam? You're broke, alone, and publicly embarrassed. And now suddenly you're sending me photos of notes from a marriage you couldn't wait to walk out of? Her eyes glistened. It's not about money. I scoffed. That's rich. She walked over slowly and placed the original note, not the photo, the actual one, on the counter between us. Same folded creases. Same faded ink. Come home to me. My handwriting. My hope. I read this 100 times after you left, she whispered. But I was too proud to come back. And now, I don't even know what I want from you. I just know that seeing you the other night broke something in me. I picked up the note and held it for a second before setting it back down. You didn't break something, Samantha. You exposed it. You showed me who you were. And that saved my life. She said nothing, just stared at the counter like the truth was too ugly to face head on. I'm not here to pick up your pieces, I said. I came here to see it for myself. The fallout. The truth. And now I have. I turned to leave. Her voice stopped me at the door. Do you hate me? She asked. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. No, I said. I just don't believe you anymore. And then I left. She didn't follow. I thought that was the end. I really did. I told myself the chapter was closed. I'd seen her ruin up close, looked her in the eyes, and walked away without letting her take another piece of me. I thought I'd feel lighter after that. Freed. But the truth? I felt hollow for days. Not because I missed her, I didn't. But because I finally understood just how much of myself I'd let her strip away back then. And how easily she thought she could slip back into my life once her comfort collapsed. I went silent again. No texts. No social media. No late-night replays in my head. I avoided the gala circuits, turned down panel invites, and threw myself into back-end logistics work to keep my hands and brain too busy to wander. I thought maybe she'd take the hint this time. She didn't. It was 2 weeks later when I got the package. No return label. Just my name, handwritten, and my company's new office address. Inside was a single manila folder. No letter, no card, just paper. At first, I thought it was a legal document, something tied to her mess with Garrett. But when I opened it, I realized what it was. Photos. Dozens of them. Photos of us. From our marriage. Some I hadn't even seen before. Shots from her phone or her friends. Casual moments like me asleep on the couch with our dog, or her holding my hand under a table at some forgettable dinner. There was one of me helping her zip up her dress for our anniversary night. Another of me standing on a ladder hanging string lights for her birthday party. All these tiny, forgettable, invisible moments I had filed away under not enough. At the bottom was a handwritten page. One page. She had written it in black ink, the same way she used to leave me grocery notes on the fridge. No signature. Just this. I wanted to hurt you. That night in Utah, I knew what I was doing. I knew you'd see the photos eventually. I let Garrett post them. I let the lie grow because I needed you to break first. I was angry that you didn't fight me harder. I thought your silence meant you didn't care. But now I know it was the only strength you had left. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to finally know that none of this, none of it, was your fault. I read that line over and over again. I wanted to feel something. Maybe peace. Maybe satisfaction. But all I felt was sick. Because for years, I blamed myself. For not being enough. Not being exciting. Not fighting harder to keep a woman who had emotionally checked out before I even realized we were sinking. I carried her betrayal like it was my failure. And now she wanted to let me off the hook? Years too late. I threw the letter into the shredder. But I didn't throw away the photos. Not because I missed her, but because I wanted the reminder. A visual record of who I used to be. The man who bent over backwards to hold together something that was never solid to begin with. The man who gave everything and got lied to in return. I locked them in my desk drawer. Not to mourn the past. To honor the survival. That was the last I heard from her. Or so I thought. Until the final shock arrived. Not from her. But from someone else entirely. The final surprise didn't come in a text. It didn't come in a knock at the door or another desperate message scribbled on fancy paper. It came in the form of a person, someone I never saw coming. Her name was Emily. Not someone from my past. Not a connection through work or some rebound I met on an app. She was the new head of operations at one of our partner firms. A sharp, quiet professional who preferred solving problems over shaking hands. I noticed her months ago, but never said more than polite hellos and small talk at project meetings. She was just there. Calm. Steady. Uncomplicated. But one day, right around the time Samantha's final letter arrived, Emily stopped by my office to return a misrouted document. We ended up talking. Not about logistics. Not about quarterly numbers or vendor delays. About books. About how much we both hated fake networking events. About how weirdly comforting rainy days were. One conversation turned into two. Then lunch. Then coffee. Then, finally, an actual date. Nothing flashy. No pressure. Just two people who had been tired for too long finding ease in each other's company. There was a moment, maybe on the third or fourth date, where she laughed at something I said and rested her head on my shoulder for a second. And I froze. Not in fear. Not in panic. But in realization. This felt different. Not performative. Not manipulative. Just real. I told her everything eventually. Not all at once. I didn't want to make her carry my baggage. But she listened. She didn't flinch. She didn't run. She just said, "Sounds like you finally left the fire." And I realized she was right. Samantha wasn't my story anymore. She was a chapter. One full of lessons I didn't ask for, but needed. And I had made it out. Not bitter. Not broken. Just awake. I stopped checking for new messages. I stopped waiting for apologies. I stopped looking over my shoulder for the past to catch up. I deleted the number. I cleared the photos from my drawer. I took a breath. And then I lived. Not to prove anything. Not to show her what she lost. But because for the first time in a long, long time, I wanted to. And for anyone reading this, wondering if the pain ends, if the silence ever becomes peace, it does. But only when you stop letting the person who broke you rewrite the ending. I'm writing my own now. And this time, it's not a tragedy. It's a beginning.